All right, so today we're diving into some pretty interesting news coming out of the world of e-commerce.
Yeah, it's a big one.
We're talking about Amazon and specifically a policy change that has a lot of FBA sellers pretty worried.
Yeah, you're right. It's caused a lot of concern in the community.
Yeah, so essentially, for those who might not be familiar with how this works, Amazon FBA, that's Fulfillment by Amazon, is a service where sellers send their products to Amazon's warehouses, and from there, Amazon handles all the storage, the packing, the shipping, the customer service returns, all that good stuff.
Right, all the logistics of actually getting a product to a customer's door.
Yeah, exactly. And so in the past, if something went wrong along the way, if a seller's product was lost or damaged, Amazon would reimburse them the full selling price of that item.
Seemed pretty fair, right?
Right. It seemed very fair. And it was a system that a lot of sellers relied on.
Absolutely, yeah.
So now under this new policy, Amazon will only reimburse sellers for the manufacturing cost of the lost or damaged goods.
Yeah, this is where things get a little bit sticky for sellers.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty big deal. Can you kind of break down what that actually means for the average seller?
Yeah, so let's imagine we have a seller who makes these beautiful handcrafted handkerchiefs, and they sell them on Amazon for, let's say, $10 each.
Okay.
But those handkerchiefs cost them $2 to produce.
Okay.
So under the old system, if Amazon lost 100 of these handkerchiefs, the seller would receive $1,000 in reimbursement.
Right. Makes sense.
Makes sense. But with this new policy, they would only be reimbursed for that manufacturing cost. So that means they would only receive $200.
Wow, that's
Quite a significant difference.
that's a huge difference, yeah.
And that's even before we factor in, the cost of shipping, handling, or any customs duties that the seller might have paid.
Right. Yeah. So that's a big hit to absorb. And you mentioned that, this has sparked a lot of concerns within the seller community. So what are some of the key issues that they're raising?
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest ones is this vagueness around Amazon's definition of manufacturing cost. Because, they've indicated that they'll use comparable products to determine this cost, which leaves a lot of room for interpretation. And sellers are understandably worried that Amazon's estimates will be on the lower end, further cutting into their potential reimbursement.
Right. It sounds incredibly frustrating.
It is for many sellers.
Is there anything that sellers can do if they believe, Amazon's estimate of the manufacturing cost is too low?
Well, they can challenge it, but the process isn't exactly straightforward because, sellers would need to submit their actual invoices to Amazon.
Yeah.
Which, of course, reveals, a lot of sensitive information about their business.
Wow. So they're stuck between potentially accepting a low reimbursement or handing over this confidential data about their suppliers and pricing.
Yeah, it's kind of
It seems like a lose-lose.
It really does feel like a lose-lose for a lot of sellers.
Yeah, and it almost feels like they're being strong-armed into just accepting whatever Amazon decides is fair.
Right, and there's this, underlying worry that this information could be used against them.
In what way?
Well, there's this concern about being undercut or even copied if Amazon gains access to their supplier information. And, we've actually heard anecdotes about similar situations happening in the past.
Really?
Yeah. A friend of mine, she had a really thriving business selling high-quality emu oil on Amazon. And not long after her product really started taking off, Amazon launched their own private label version of emu oil.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying that Amazon used her success to create a competing product?
Well, it certainly raises questions about,
the
ethics of platform power, and we'll discuss that more in a moment, but it's not just about one product either.
Okay.
Another friend, Mike Jackness, had a similar experience with his gel pack business.
Really?
Very successful. And Amazon did the same thing. They launched their own version, undercutting his prices, mimicking his packaging, and he ended up losing a significant portion of his business.
Wow. These stories are concerning, to say the least. And I know we're just scratching the surface here, but it already seems like this policy change has the potential to create so many headaches for sellers, both in terms of lost revenue and this risk of exposing their business practices.
Yeah, it's definitely a time of uncertainty in the Amazon marketplace.
Yeah, for sure.
It really makes you wonder, where is the line between just healthy competition and, what some might call predatory behavior?
Right, especially when you consider that, Amazon already holds so much power in the e-commerce landscape. They control a platform, the fulfillment centers, the shipping, customer service. And now with this reimbursement policy, it seems like they're tightening their grip on, the financial aspects of selling as well.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not just this policy change in isolation, right? We've seen a pattern of increasing costs and control for sellers on Amazon.
In what way?
Well, advertising costs have skyrocketed FBA fees. Those fulfillment fees, they continue to rise. And the rollout of their warehouse and distribution service, or AWD, has been, to put it mildly, chaotic.
Oh, don't even get me started on ADW. I have friends who are like, begging Amazon to pick up their inventory during the holiday rush, only to be met with delays, cancellations, lost shipments. Like, it was a logistical nightmare for them.
Yeah, it's been a real struggle for a lot of sellers.
And then after all of that, they raised the price for this service.
Yeah, it seems like a bit of a trend, right? Amazon claims there are no new fees, but the reality for sellers is that costs are going up while service quality arguably is going down.
And that's not even just impacting the sellers, it's impacting customers like you and me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's trickling down to the customer experience as well.
I've noticed it myself. I'm a Prime member, and even I've seen a decline in delivery speed and reliability. Sometimes I wonder if it wouldn't be faster to just drive to the warehouse myself and pick it up.
Right. I mean, it's a valid point. And at the same time, we're seeing the rise of these direct from China platforms like Temu and Shein.
Oh, yeah. They're everywhere these days.
Right. They offer incredibly low prices, often bypassing traditional retail channels, and they're putting immense pressure on, Amazon's pricing structure.
So how has Amazon responded to that competition?
Well, interestingly, they recently launched their own Temu-style dropshipping service called Amazon Haul. So basically, they're trying to compete with a business model that directly undercuts their own FBA sellers.
So it seems a bit contradictory, don't you think?
It does. It sends a bit of a mixed message to the sellers who are already feeling the squeeze.
Right. And from what I'm hearing, the overall sentiment among sellers is not positive.
There's a lot of frustration and uncertainty. They feel like Amazon is constantly changing the rules of the game, making it harder and harder to succeed.
Yeah. I can imagine that's incredibly disheartening for those who've, built their businesses on this platform.
It is. And we're seeing a lot of successful sellers. They're starting to diversify. They're moving away from Amazon, exploring alternative platforms.
So what does this all mean for the future of Amazon and e-commerce as a whole?
Well, it's hard to say for sure, but if this trend continues, it could lead to an exodus of all but the highest margin businesses from Amazon's marketplace.
Right. So those smaller sellers, the ones who helped build Amazon into what it is today,
Yeah.
They might simply not be able to survive.
Exactly. And that's a real concern because they bring so much variety and innovation to the platform.
And what would that mean for consumers like us?
Well, it could mean higher prices, fewer choices, and less innovation in the marketplace. If only a handful of large companies can afford to play the game, we all might end up paying the price.
It's a sobering thought.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, it really makes you think about, the bigger picture here.
Definitely.
We've been talking about this Amazon policy change and the reimbursements and all that, and it seems like this could be, a real turning point.
Yeah.
For both sellers and buyers.
It is. It's a complex relationship. Right.
Yeah.
Amazon has built this incredible marketplace, but, things are changing as it grows, and the balance of power seems to be shifting.
Yeah.
This policy change, along with, all these rising costs and this increased competition, it's putting a lot of pressure on sellers.
Yeah.
Especially these smaller businesses.
Right. And like you were saying, the potential consequences are significant, not just for sellers, but for us.
Consumers.
We could see higher prices, less variety, fewer of those cool, innovative products if it's only the big guys left.
Yeah, that's a real possibility. And it raises an interesting question for all of us, as consumers. What role do we want to play in, shaping the future of e-commerce?
Right. Do we just, sit back and accept these changes, or do we actually look for, alternatives and really think about, what we value?
Exactly.
And it makes me think about, where do I spend my money? And what impact does that have?
Yeah.
Do I just want the cheapest thing, or do I think about, the businesses I'm supporting?
Yeah. Do we prioritize convenience and low prices above all else?
Right.
Or do we consider, the bigger picture, the businesses we're supporting, the potential consequences?
Yeah. I mean, this deep dive has given me a lot to think about.
Me too.
That's for sure.
It's complicated.
This policy change is just one piece of a much larger puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
And the decisions that are made by Amazon, by sellers, by, consumers like us are going to shape the future.
They really will. The future of e-commerce is still being written.
Yeah.
And we have the power to influence it, through our choices, our voices, our actions.
For sure.
If we care about, these smaller businesses.
Yeah.
Fair competition, making sure there's a good variety of products out there. We need to engage with these issues, make our voices heard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I just want to encourage everyone, think about your own relationship with Amazon. What role do you want to play in shaping the future of e-commerce?
It's a good question.
Do your research, explore the alternatives, support the businesses that that align with your values.
Remember, every purchase is a vote.
It is.
Cast your vote wisely.
Well said. All right. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Absolutely.
It's been a fascinating conversation.
It has.
And until next time, happy shopping, everyone.
Take care.